And welcome to WrestleTakesMania. I am Joe Martel, and I am with my friend Eric Mutter, the cult icon. How are we doing today, Eric?
We're doing great. First show.
First real show. We've been doing practice shows for about 2 months now, it feels like. We've been
I think it's more a month and a half.
Month and a half. Oh, yeah, because 6 or 8 weeks. It's a big difference.
Right,
We've known each other for a long time. We've been on other wrestling websites. We won't mention any names, but it was laughable, off-putting professional wrestling talk, we'll say, was garbage.
Yes.
Besides
that, it was great.
But, well, we met, we became friends online. I'm sure a lot of people listening right now, you've dealt with that. If you've been on wrestling message boards or comment sections, there's some people that you just attach yourselves to, and you end up becoming a bit, I don't know, friendly in a far way, online friendly way, which is going to be very ironic considering that you and I do not like the same type of wrestling whatsoever.
No, I am as I'm sure the people can tell, I'm currently wearing my Lucha Libre AAA hat.
Yep.
I'm a big Lucha fan. I'm a big fan of the flips, as we call it, as the kids call it.
Mm-hmm.
And you are not?
No, I am not into the Lucha style or the flips or the dives or the spots. I grew up on classic WWF, and that's still what I strive for when I watch my current wrestling.
Right.
But be that as it may, despite our differences and opinions on what wrestling should be, we still get along and discuss wrestling, and hopefully everyone listening will enjoy the show as well.
Right.
So, starting with one fact that we should actually bring up, Eric, you don't watch any WWE, do you?
No.
So let's not pretend otherwise.
No.
Basically, you are our expert on fan takes. You are going to tell us what the Twitterverse is going to be saying about shows. Maybe not the Reddit verse, but we'll stick to the Twitterverse and tell us what impressions you've heard, and as well as what you've thought of, because you've obviously followed headlines and seen what has gone on WWE.
Oh, well, you have to. Of course. You have to, because in this day and age, even if you don't watch WWE, you're still following it. It's the biggest promotion. You have to keep an eye on things just to stay current.
Mm-hmm.
And, you could find everything everywhere these days. There's clips on YouTube. There's clips on Twitter. There's clips on Reddit, as you just brought up, those wonderful people there. You can't avoid it.
You can't.
WWE is everywhere. So you're going to have an opinion one way or the other. And plus, I did watch it for, 15 years? And unfortunately, not much has changed since.
In a lot of ways. Yeah. What caused you to lead yourself away from WWE has not made you want to come back. Basically, one of the big things you and I bonded on was our appreciation of Sir CM Punk, who left for a lot of reasons, and a lot of those similar reasons are the reasons you don't watch.
That was a big breaking point for me when he left, and then he did that podcast with Cabana, which ironically led to them no longer being friends. And
let's hope we don't have the same issue.
No, I don't think so. I think we'll be fine there. I mean, neither one of us is like
millionaire
CM Punk's personality or anything.
Sometimes.
Yeah, we're both more Cabanas, I feel. Cabana seems like a good dude. But it was that. And, before I watched WWE, I watched WCW. When I was a kid, I watched WCW. So that's what I grew up on.
Mm-hmm.
And around that time, I rediscovered my love for WCW. I rediscovered my love for Lucha Libre, which came from WCW.
Mm-hmm.
I watched Wrestle Kingdom, and WWE's booking was an abomination at the time. We could be here. Yeah, well, we could be here forever on the whole thing. The breaking point for me was the Roman Reigns debacle, where they shoved him into the main event years before he was ready. And to me, it was just like, these people don't give a crap about me. They don't give a crap about us fans. Why am I putting my time into this?
That's the big
I left.
That I'll always have with fans that don't feel like they enjoy WWE. Just move on. I still enjoy it. I'm going to be an apologist.
And that's great.
I'll say. I don't see it that way. That's just the type of product I enjoy. I
Right.
don't mind AEW, but I'm definitely not an AEW fan the way you are, especially considering what we will be covering over, every week on here on Tuesdays.
Sure.
So with your background, what were your impressions from what you heard about the season premiere of Monday Night Raw last night?
Well, I've heard worse. That's the positive.
That was last week's show.
Yeah, no, that was the one from. It's actually been a month since the one where Tozawa got eaten by the shark, and T-Bar and Slapnuts or Slapjack or whatever his name is. They did that whole thing. That was worse, according to most people. But this was not far behind.
Really,
according to most people. Yeah, people were not. They were not high on this show.
So let's recap some of the big important parts. I'm assuming that opening match was a 4-on-4 Retribution against the Hurt Business. And I got to say, the Hurt Business, I think, is the secret weapon to Raw. Almost anything they do is very good. They had a segment with Titus O'Neil later on the show that was pretty entertaining. They had a decent match, but obviously the attention wasn't on the Hurt Business. We wanted to know what was the next step for Retribution. And their next step was to lose clean by tap out in their first real match. I know they had, I think it was a
and following that match, they then got bulldozed by the Fiend, Bray Wyatt. And then later on, after all of this, they then decide to have Ali cut this promo where he explains his motivations, which is fine if his group hadn't just been humiliated an hour and a half earlier.
I don't get it. I'm usually going to be the one that says, well, let's wait to see how it happens. And honestly, that's how I feel about Retribution in general. I'm not that excited for it, but there's the magic with wrestling is they could turn things around at any moment. The sad recent track record for WWE is they definitely don't do it anymore, but we know it could potentially happen. But where does Retribution go from this point forward? I really don't know. Other than Ali's promo, there's nothing that works for me when it comes to Retribution.
I'm surprised the place they weren't going was to the OVW box that the Spirit Squad got set to do. Really, let's be real. The only difference between Retribution and the Spirit Squad right now is that one of them had pom-poms and the other one has terrible Bane masks they picked up at Party Town, USA or wherever. Whatever
the one that Dean Ambrose left behind a couple years ago.
Right. Yes. One of those. Like you bring up the point, wait and see how it goes. And I thought about this a lot today. And this is the big problem that I have with this place. It's one of the reasons why I left. How can you have any faith in where it's going to go? We have seen this movie before. This applies to the guy that attacked them as well. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, who some people are like, oh, I don't know about this, but we'll see where it goes. How can you have faith? Bray Wyatt has been on TV for 7 years, 2013, right? That's when he came up. How many times has he just completely been blown up by booking, by his own, he's not a great worker, by his own work, by the booking. And, he did get that reprieve last year when they did come up with this Fiend character briefly, and it looked like, oh, maybe they've salvaged him. And then he had the Cell match. And since then, it's never been the same. It's never been the same. And these Retribution guys and such, since the beginning of this, none of this has made sense. None of it. They're an invading stable, and yet they're signed, and yet WWE is promoting them on TV as they're destroying their property.
As they're drafted, doing all this, absolutely.
They're being drafted through all of this. Now they're trying to connect this hacker thing, which they cared about for a few months and then dropped, and now are pretending this was part of the plan all along, like they always do. I mean, how can you have any faith in any of this, that it's going somewhere, when so far there's no evidence that it is? And historically, with these types of angles, it never does go anywhere. It always goes to the same place, crippling disappointment, unless it's something that the fans personally take over themselves, like a Daniel Bryan, like a Becky Lynch, like a Kofi Kingston. and then you may get a positive result. And even then, Kofi Kingston won the title. He had the great moment. Then he got squashed in 8 seconds? And he's a tag guy. It's like it never happened.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to having faith, it's not so much that, at least from my perspective, I don't have faith that it's going to turn around, but there's still potential. And I'm going to wait and see if it happens. I'm not getting my hopes up, and I'm definitely not saying, like, can't wait till next week with Retribution. I'll just put it aside, just like most of the card. Let's see if something comes out of it. If not, it's just going to be another forgettable 10-minute segment, whatever they're involved in.
Sure, yeah.
So, and thankfully, you mentioned The Fiend, which is a crux to this whole thing. When it comes to what The Fiend has done, a lot like, not as good, but a lot like Jericho with reinventing,
yes,
he's done a pretty good job. And right now, even though he's in this pretty restrictive Fiend character, and you're absolutely correct, last year's Hell in a Cell, and I am dreading the idea that we're having an anniversary of that match coming up, if it hasn't already come up. When it comes to The Fiend reinventing himself, he instituted this change with Alexa Bliss, and that's creating for me a lot of interest. Now, I don't know if you could tell from my attire and background, unlike Alex Perez with his Scorsese type movies, I have Friday the 13th. I'm a much classier movie guy, as you can tell. My Milwaukee Bears basketball jersey.
Great film.
And Sleepaway Camp shirt for those who do know. When it comes to the horror aspect, I'm all in. And for Alexa, who's one of the more attractive women in wrestling, in my opinion, to also be part of it, I'm very engaged into where the story goes, but it completely killed any interest I had in Retribution at the same time.
Right.
By having that squash.
The problem here, too, WWE at this point, we're down to the hardcore audience. We're pretty much down to it everywhere you look. WWE, NXT, Impact, AEW, all the other places, you're pretty much down to that here in the United States, the hardcore audience. Bray Wyatt is this character. I think he does a lot for the people still watching, but the people still watching would be watching regardless of what he does. Has this character done enough to draw in new people? Is he established enough to draw in new people? And my answer to that would be no. Whenever I hear anything that he's doing, I immediately just roll my eyes over it. And you got to understand, that's tough. I was a Lucha Underground guy. There was many things on that show that defied the realm of possibility in ways. You know, and I consider myself to be pretty open-minded. As long as something is good in wrestling, I don't care what you do. I just care that it's good. But when it comes to Bray, I guess maybe it is because, as we go back to it, how many times I was burned with that. Over and over again, you're promised, this is going to be the time. This is going to be the breakout. This is when things are going to get changed.
And then there's the hologram.
And then there's the hologram. And then there's the exploding TV. And then there's the red tint in the cell with the mallet and all of that. And the restart the match chance and everything. Like, I can't invest in this guy. And I think most people who are gone now, who are like, all right, tell me what's going on. Well, Bray Wyatt's doing this. Oh, I don't care. He's going to be ruined in 5 months.
I wouldn't deny that. I know for newer fans that it could be an intriguing character, but they're going to learn pretty quick that within months, oh, wow, this Bray Wyatt Alexa thing, that's pretty interesting. 3 months from now, it's going to be pretty much over. They're going to switch gears, and you're going to learn, oh, there's the pattern. It's going to start strong, finish weak.
My gut is Alexa will benefit more from it than he will.
And it's not like she can benefit much more. She's already one of the more established women in the roster. Speaking of the women on Raw, probably my least favorite segment was they had Lana challenge Asuka, which was fine, forgettable, short match. But then Asuka gets beat up by Nia Jax, and Shayna, which is a match I feel like they've hinted at, probably not on purpose, but it seems like they've been enough hints. I'm intrigued. I want to see that match. Definitely not the Nia Jax match. And then it turned into a 4-way, not a challenge, but an open invitation for people to try to beat up the tag champs. And it was just such a lame segment. I don't know. Suddenly
Well,
I don't think you have to be invested by the Iconics to be disappointed that suddenly Peyton just moved over to tag with Lacey, which might turn into a feud, but still, why would anyone care by just this terrible storytelling?
That was so dumb right there. The thing where Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan are there, they just got drafted, and now they're suddenly back on Raw. That just makes the draft look so dumb. Like, why did I waste my time with that? The Otis thing, too, like where he's out there. I know he's in the mask. I know they're trying to be cute with the luchador thing. I'm just shaking in my head at that because, like, you got all these luchador guys, and then you just have this. It shows how they feel about people like Metalik and Lince Dorado. They see these people as jokes when they have Otis running around doing that, but that's neither here nor there. Like, that women's thing, yeah. Why are you doing that? Why are you bringing these women back when you had them drafted to the other brand? Why are you putting Peyton Royce with Lacey Ryan when she had a perfectly fine tag partner with great chemistry with?
Lacey Evans.
What I call her?
Ryan. You're thinking Mason Ryan.
Oh, well, they have a lot in common there, those two. Yeah, I'll just refer to as Lacey so I don't mess up again.
Remember, folks, he doesn't watch WWE, but yeah, absolutely.
But I should know that name. I know her name there. Yeah.
And then, yeah, so you're absolutely right. They bring over the Smackdown, and they tried to explain it at saying because the tag champions can move brand, then suddenly so can the challengers, but no one's ever established that. It was just a made-up idea just to fill in the time, which reminds me of how they discovered the best way to do tag champions, which is just to hand over each other's belts the previous week during the draft. I don't need wrestling to be super serious and super realistic, but by erasing any sort of reality from it, it's going to be hard for any fan to get any investment into an angle or a title or whatever the case is. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Why care about the draft if the next week they're just going to show up anyways?
Right. Yeah, you can stretch reality if you establish that perimeter in your storytelling like Lucha Underground did, but when you don't do that,
it's just
and you're just pulling stuff out of your ass as you go along, then yeah, you're going to leave everybody just confused and frustrated, which is exactly what this came across as, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And, as far as the other thing goes, like Asuka and Lana, I mean, I don't know what the hell they're doing with Lana. She's going through a table every week. I have no idea if that has to do with Miro or not, like some people think. It doesn't really matter anyway. Lana has a ceiling as a worker. She should be a manager.
Correct.
And as you said, yeah, I don't care about Asuka and Nia Jax. And me personally, I don't care about Asuka and Shayna Baszler because I've seen Shayna Baszler and I'm not a fan of hers.
Okay.
I get why some people like her, but every time I've watched her, she's always been the worst part of the match. She's always needed somebody else to accentuate what she does well.
That's not inaccurate. I think that comes from the lack of experience. She was an MMA fighter for most of her adult career. So that makes sense. True. But I still like that realistic in-ring style. So and of all people, I think Asuka is a pretty good opponent to work with that style.
Yeah,
so
I think that match will work because Asuka is the perfect opponent.
Bring out the best out of Shayna for sure.
Besides that, though, I'm not sold on Shayna.
So the other thing I want to mention quickly was they had a new theme song, but anyone who was paying attention to the Smackdown show just a couple nights ago, they already heard that because that was the same tune that was playing during this very good vignette for Bianca Belair. I'm not much of a hip hop guy, but that stood out. It was a very good vignette. And then all of a sudden it was the Raw theme. And again, I know music doesn't get drafted from one brand or the other, but it's very bizarre to hear it on one show and then hear it adopted as the theme 4 days later on another network.
Vince must have thought it was hopping. He must have thought, wow, this is a hot tune on her. You got to put it on the show.
It was
terrible Vince impression right there.
Yeah, I'm not going to worry about any impressions. We're not going to be good at any of those.
That's true.
The other part that was kind of funny, I don't know if anyone else noticed it, but they had a pretty creepy Fiend segment. And then it went to a commercial for a USA network, and it was a Chris Lee Knows Best. And it was just this creepy Alexa dark to very fake reality show Chris Lee. It was such a switch. I didn't get it.
Yeah, you're going to get that, though, when you're promoting other stuff on the network.
I get it. It just seemed like such a drastic change out of nowhere.
Right.
The only match that seemed really worth watching was the Kofi Kingston Sheamus match. I think Sheamus is just a generically very generic. I almost make it sound bad, but he's generally a very good worker. He's very dependable no matter what he's given. And Kofi, whether he had a good run as a champion or not, he has the talent to back it up. So that combination was pretty good. I'm enjoying the continuation of the Big E Sheamus angle that was going on, switching it to New Day on Raw. Where does that go from there? Who knows? But that does bring up, did you hear about the wall for the Thunderdome being used to have legends and other roster members sitting and watching the show?
Yeah. I mean, that's neither here nor there for me. I think it can work with. I know Big E was there for that match, like you talked about, and they worked that into the match. I think that's effective. I don't really care about JBL or Mark Henry or whoever being in the.
No, but I think it establishes for moments when Big E is someone who's related to the story in the crowd. The first time I noticed it, and I was very disappointed they didn't make mention of it, but they had Keith Lee in the same frame as other legends, and they mentioned the legends on commentary, but Keith Lee wasn't mentioned. I think that was on Smackdown on Friday night. Yeah,
because Keith Lee had said he was going to be on that show to watch the Strowman match. That's a perfect segue right there to Keith Lee.
Yeah, that main event, I will never mind a screwy ending, whether it's a DQ or a cheap ending. I think we're learning, though, that a WWE product, pure WWE product like Braun Strowman, is going to show his weaknesses in a match where you are with a much more talented big man in Keith Lee, and there's going to be weaknesses in the work.
I just thought, I mean, I get what you're saying. Yeah, and by the way, DQ finishes are not inherently a bad thing. Nothing is truly a bad thing in wrestling unless you just do it too much or too wrong or whatever. They have done this too much with Keith Lee. All of his matches, it seemed like, have had a screwy finish. Either somebody's getting DQ'd, both guys are getting DQ'd, both guys are getting counted out, or somebody's getting screwed by a low blow, which is how this match finished here. And at this point, if you're someone who was invested in Keith Lee, and there was a lot of reason to be, he's got a great look, he's a great worker, a lot of charisma, he has superstar potential, and he is right now just a dude because of how they've handled him. He came in there, they did put him with Orton, so it shows they thought highly of him, and
putting him with Strowman is also a good sign. But the way this match goes kind of deflates it.
You can tell they value him. They just don't know what to do with him. And as a result, he's now just a guy. Now, does that mean he's always going to just be a guy? No. I mean, there were several points Drew McIntyre over the last couple of years was thoroughly mishandled, in my opinion. And eventually he was able to get to the spot he is now. Now, do I think he could be in a better position than he is now in terms of being over? Sure, and part of that is because they mishandled him. But he did recover. And Keith Lee can recover too. But can he recover enough to get to the potential that we all thought he had? That's going to be tough to tell given how they've handled him. And I don't know, the Braun thing, I get it because they're both big. But Braun was a guy, when he had the momentum, it was great. And then he had that Brock match. It sucked. And ever since then, ever since the momentum went away and his limitations were exposed, that was pretty much it for him right there. I don't know if that's a great opponent for Keith Lee in terms of accentuating what he does well. But, time will tell. But again, it's hard to have faith in it. Just hard to have faith.
Well, I think everything I've seen of Keith Lee in NXT and then previously, because both of us have watched some independent wrestling before they come to WWE. We are aware of a lot of these people. And Keith Lee is one that's been on our radar for a long time. So we know his potential. We know he can do a lot of great things. We're just got to hope that WWE sees that as well. So far, so good that they acknowledge it, or as you put it, they value him. Whether they can accentuate it is a different story. We're going to see if they're able to pull that off.
He's clearly doing better than Matt Riddle is, considering that Riddle is spending his time cowering at this this 7-foot guy.
Yeah,
the bodyguard, which, I mean, I get it. They're trying to get that guy over. Matt Riddle was a UFC fighter, and he's scared of a punch. He's scared of a fist being made and such. I also get that there are other circumstances with Riddle that may have WWE thinking, we don't really want to go all in with this guy. Yeah. But, like...
Well, when it comes to that bodyguard segment, you can't help but compare to Diesel and Shawn Michaels from 1993.
Right. Always the comparison.
And AJ Styles kind of fits the Shawn Michaels role in a lot of ways. Not all of them, but in a lot of ways it fits. I'm interested in seeing where that goes. I was still much more interested in seeing what happens with Matt Riddle, not just because of the political side story that might be going on.
Yeah.
I just like him as a wrestler, and I want to see what he does next.
Oh, yeah, he's a great worker. There's no doubt about that. Matt Riddle has all the tools. Does he have the backing? And will he have this cloud of suspicion over him for years to come? And I mean, part of that is on his own doing with how his lawyer handled that and everything. If he had, who knows what happened there? But if his side handled that badly, and that's why some of this is hanging over him, and it's why they're now all going to court.
A little segue there. You said hanging over. The whole Raw show ended with the cell coming down. It was hanging over the whole night. Comes down, and Orton gives a pretty generic promo. Drew comes out, wants to attack him, but it's locked, so he gets the bolt cutters. They end up having a pull apart sort of thing. Very generic ending, and I really can't help but feel like they missed the boat with this one, because that last match, the ambulance match at Clash of Champions, I think it was, it's not that it was a great match, but it was the greatest ending to an angle WWE's done in a long time. It's not mind-blowingly anything.
Perfect match to end the feud, too.
Exactly. They had every component from the people that Orton had attacked over the weeks before, come back, get their revenge. It was a clean ending. And then all of a sudden, they're going to bring it back for a third pay-per-view in a row. And as much as these two guys are very talented, I'm sure the match is going to be very good. I still don't care. They really had it right when the ambulance door got closed. And I don't have any more energy for whatever else happens in this feud.
Yeah, this is a big problem they have right now, where these feuds go on forever and ever and ever until the momentum is gone. Honestly, this feud, we forget this now, but this feud was dying a little bit before that ambulance match, too. It was not the same as it was when it was during SummerSlam, and that was going hot. It was dying, I won't say dying a death, but it was losing steam, and now it's completely lost steam. And Orton, this promo, I did have a laugh, reading about, this is the most grueling match in the history of WWE. By the way, I've been in it 8 times. It's so grueling. You've wrestled 8 times and you're still here, and you're going to be wrestling here for many more years. And then you bring up all these other people who were in these matches, and they had long careers too.
Yeah.
Like, come on, Randy.
Yeah, it'd be great if they had someone end their career in the cell, like Cactus. Anyways, that's another story. So
and he stayed retired pretty much too.
Pretty much.
A few one-offs here and there.
So that was the Raw season premiere. Nothing too special. I think they had some small changes. They're almost aesthetic, the theme song being one of them. And I found it kind of interesting that they incorporated the Fiend in the existing angle of the Hurt Business and Retribution. But other than that, it felt like a pretty generic episode of Raw. SmackDown, I can say that was a little different. So go quickly. I know that was a few days ago, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But secretly, you and I had a discussion last week about how you wish someone was getting the Brock Lesnar push from 2002, where they just go all in with someone. And it seems like they are. Lars Sullivan gets the exact same first opponent that Brock Lesnar got back then, Jeff Hardy, and just rolls through him on SmackDown and gets all the hype in the world. Are you regretting saying what you said about Brock Lesnar push going to someone today?
Yes. A very strong yes on that one. And here I was too. I'm all about to start praising SmackDown, because while I am obviously not watching these shows, if I were to watch one, it would be SmackDown, because SmackDown has the angles that sound the most intriguing. Agreed. The Roman Reigns thing sounds very good. All accounts, it's been very well done. Sasha and Bayley, I know you're, full disclosure, you are not a big fan of Sasha Banks.
I am not.
And such. But that is at least, everybody else is pretty much a fan of her.
Mhm.
Everybody likes this angle, and it's at least something that's been built up for a while between her and Bayley.
It's a very hot angle.
It's a very hot angle. And I mean, apparently some people even like this Rey and Seth Rollins angle too.
I don't know a single person in that category.
Well, I unfortunately do, and I question their sanity as well, but that's neither here nor there.
Are they also all on Reddit?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
If you go on Reddit, you will find that WWE can do little wrong. In fact, you'll find that most promotions can do little wrong, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, they've got good stuff. It's not a perfect show. It may benefit greatly from the fact that Raw is not very good, and NXT is kind of, it's hit and miss these days. But it is doing legitimately good things, SmackDown. Mm-hmm. And then you tell me about this Lars Sullivan thing right here. This guy, I can't believe this man is still employed, first off. Or actually, I would say that until we consider who else is still employed there.
It's still baffling overall, because whether he has the potential or not, or Velveteen Dream is another one that we would argue about on that one. There's a lot of potential, but at the same time, now might be the best way to cut their losses, because they haven't established themselves. Whereas if they did make a name for themselves and became, not that I think either of them could be the next John Cena or The Rock, but if they got to that level and that's when the news broke, I think WWE would be in a much tougher position.
Right. Well, look, here's another example. Jordan Devlin was a guy who had accusations against him too. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I'm picking between a Jordan Devlin or a Lars Sullivan, I'm picking a Jordan Devlin because, number one, I mean, yeah, his accusations are bad too. We're not going to belittle any accusations here and such. But if you're from WWE's perspective, he has one thing. Lars Sullivan has a truckload of things. He has more things than the Velveteen Dream, even though Dreams are, in my opinion, worse in some regards. Yeah. Yeah, I just don't get it. It's not like Lars Sullivan is a particularly charismatic dude. It's not like he's a super worker. It's not like he's even a very good worker. He's just a guy. He had that one ladder match where got a lot of praise and such. Of course, it had nothing to do with him. No. It had to do with Ricochet flying around so he could prove he was worthy for a spot on WWE main event. But yeah, and I think that's really all Lars has ever done. He was in that one match and he had a bunch of stupid stuff that he did that got found out. And now he's still getting pushed because he's a big guy.
He is definitely a throwback to more of an 80s style wrestler where they were built like a barrel and just thick, and I get that. I don't know if that's why Vince likes him so much. I don't know.
And the problem too is they have plenty of those guys.
Well, he's a little unique. I'm not saying they don't have big guys, but he's got a unique aesthetic to him where he's thick in a way that a lot of people aren't. He's got a natural football type build that we haven't seen since like the era of a Ron Simmons or something along those lines. That's, again, though, I'm not saying that he's worth keeping. I'm just saying that's what makes him stand out.
I suppose, but like, why not just ask Mojo Rawley to gain a few extra pounds? Mojo, I don't know how good he is, but he's at least more charismatic.
Definitely.
And he's got an actual connection to somebody who's famous. And Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
And yet Mojo's going to be sitting next to me in a few minutes. That's WWE can't find him. He's going to be right here next to me.
We're going to see if we can get him on the show eventually.
We'll have to now.
Now, Mojo, we're your biggest fans.
Yes.
When it comes to SmackDown, some of the other things that were pretty good, switching from the Lars Sullivan stuff. New Day had some real emotion about being split up. That was pretty.
Yes, that was very good. Yes, and I saw that.
A very solid 6-man tag that followed. Obviously, they got the win. Not a surprise, but it was still a very good segment. Very heartwarming, to say the least.
Right. I wish they hadn't broken them up, though. I
love the New Day. I'm a huge New Day fan.
Who isn't?
Well, there's some people out there that apparently don't like them, but I think it's few and far. But well done. I'm not getting into that, though. I think it was the best match of the show, and I'm hoping that down the road they can reconnect and tell some stories. So, you know, they did that with the Shield before Ambrose became Jon Moxley, so there's still something they could do with the New Day.
True.
The angle that never ends, it's like a lamb chop song from my childhood, but we have Seth Rollins and Mysterio still going at it, but they at least added a couple interesting elements where Daniel Bryan seems to be getting involved. And Murphy might be turning face. I don't know if this is good or bad, but at least they're giving some sort of change to that angle.
Daniel, you should have stayed home. Go back home. Go back to your newborn.
Let's be fair. Daniel Bryan against Seth Rollins match is going to be a pretty good match.
That's fine. You know, Daniel Bryan versus Ray too. I'd watch that. That sounds very good. Has that happened?
Not as far as I know, unless it was a competitive handshake type Ring of Honor type match that was on a Smackdown and forgotten years later.
They need to do that. That'll be the closest Daniel Bryan gets to Arena Mexico right there doing that match.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
I have to every time.
Well, you brought up something, or we both brought up about those screwy DQ endings. That was something that did bug me. I don't get bothered by the DQs, like I said, but when it happens too often, you're absolutely on the ball. Last week, not the show we're recapping, but the week before, we had the ending to Bayley and Sasha in less than 3 minutes.
Oh, yes.
And that ended in DQ. And then the tag title match on this show ended with a quick DQ ending. And I don't know if they're doing it on purpose or if they're just forgetting what took place the week before, but it is very stale feeling, and that's when I'll agree that it's one DQ ending too much.
It's probably forgetting the week before. There's a very booking by the seat of their pants feel with WWE right now, which is odd because that's how they beat WCW. WCW did that all the time, and you would think if anyone would learn that lesson, it would be Vince.
No.
I don't know if he's just forgotten because it was so long ago, but yeah, we could be here all evening going over the problems that WWE has with booking. And that is really the big thing. The talent is great. The roster is great. The roster has been great for years. And the problem has always been the people behind the scenes.
100%.
They've always done a bad job handicapping them, which is why the TV shows are generally bad. And then the pay-per-views are generally okay to good. You get an occasional bad show here or there.
Hell in a Cell last year.
Yeah, Hell in a Cell last year. That backlash where Samoa Joe and Roman Reigns main evented and people were walking out on them.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was a bad one, too.
The Iron Man match with Seth and Dolph where they counted down the clock.
Yes, that was terrible.
Yes. I was funny story. When the AEW did their Iron Man match, I was wondering, are they going to do the same thing there? I'm interested to see. And that thing did not happen, which should tell you something right there. Because a lot of people are always like, well, fans are just terrible these days. But they didn't do it for AEW, yet they did that to WWE. It should tell you something right there.
It was a badly booked show. That match should not have been at the end in the main event. But
no.
For the rest of SmackDown, they did have the Roman Reigns against Braun Strowman match, which was a pretty generic match between the two, and it built up pretty good to the Jey Uso title match that's happening this weekend. So quickly about what's happening this weekend. There's lots going on. 2 big shows, 2 pay-per-views. We've talked about WWE quite a bit. I think both you and I are more excited for the first show, Bound for Glory. Impact's pay-per-view is going to take place on the 24th. And between you and me, I know Impact is taking place pretty much as we're airing this right now.
Yes.
I am a huge Impact fan. I think it is the most consistent brand out of all of them that we'll discuss. Again, my opinion. And I'm very excited for Bound for Glory. What from that show stands out the most to you?
Well, you know what the answer is going to be. It's Rich Swann versus Eric Young.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't follow Impact as much as you do, although I certainly watch it more than WWE. And I was not incredibly impressed with Slammiversary back in July, right? It was in July?
I think so.
Yeah. But ever since Eric Young has come in, he has been tremendous.
Absolutely.
He's been off the charts. Great. He might be one of the most underrated performers in the game right now. He's just, I don't know if it's a complete reinvention because he's played kind of a psychotic character in the past in WWE, even occasionally in his previous Impact TNA stints. But this version on the microphone, he's unbelievable.
I love the Jerry Cheevers mask as a weapon.
The hockey mask is awesome.
It's great.
He's really good in the ring. And of course, this angle is built from what happened at Slammiversary, where Rich Swann made his comeback.
Right.
He pinned Eric, and then Eric, destroyed his leg again.
Right.
I mean, this is all about Rich Swann. It's a natural tale as old as time story, but it's so good when it's done right. It's been done right here. Swann coming back, trying to get that revenge, trying to win that championship, a championship that's eluded him. He's never been a world champion,
correct,
as far as I can recall anywhere. And, it's just, and you got this captivating bad guy to go along with it. It's easily, for that alone, I'm watching this show.
Good point.
That alone.
I got to highlight where a lot of fans that are probably hearing us talk about Impact and thinking, that's not my thing. Forget TNA. Forget Impact Wrestling when it was launched under the Billy Corgan style, even though he's redeemed himself with NWA Power. I really got to say that this Don Callis, Scott D'Amore era of Impact is beyond my expectations. A lot like we discussed about getting invested and WWE's booking, I felt that way about TNA over the years, where a couple of times...
we both have.
Great story. All of a sudden, okay, I'll tune back in. Maybe the Aces and Eights was a great example. Okay, you know what? I'll give it a TNA another shot. And then within months, it's not worth my time.
Right.
I've been hooked for at least the last year, and it's been so consistent and strong. And I really ask anyone who wants to give it a shot, if you're tempted, go ahead, get that pay-per-view, watch the show. I'm pretty confident you won't be disappointed. In my opinion, the best, or I shouldn't say best, most consistent brand in wrestling today.
Well, they have, other than Slammiversary, I've enjoyed most of their major shows that have happened since Don and Scott took over. Both of them are incredibly intelligent guys. Don Callis is a very intelligent man. Scott D'Amore has been a very sought-after guy behind the scenes for years. They both know what they're doing. It hasn't been perfect, obviously. They signed a few people like Elgin and Joey Ryan, which turned out to be huge blunders.
But you can understand why they booked them.
Yeah, I understand why they did. And obviously they weren't completely vetting these guys and such. I don't even know if they have the budget to do that there. And the Tessa Blanchard thing turned out to be a mistake, but I don't know how much of that is on them there either, as much as it also was on her for making stupid decisions in her personal life. But everybody's going to, even the best regimes are going to make mistakes and such. Overall, though, the product has been very good, I find. They've got a lot of really good talent there. Swann, Young, we talked about. Jordan Grace is tremendous. Willie Mack is tremendous.
Yes.
I really like Chris Bay. The Motor City Machine Guns are obviously tremendous to have there. Ethan Page, who knows how long he'll be around for, but he's there now. Him and Alexander, great team. They got a lot of really good stuff there. Unfortunately with them, the perception is they're still the same old TNA. And until they get really, really hot, that's unfortunately always going to be the way it is, because they just burned people so many times. And it wasn't even the people there now. It was Dixie Carter and Vince Russo and Hogan and Bischoff who primarily ran this into the ground.
Well, I think what becomes problematic in a lot of ways when it comes to Impact is right now, especially with AEW, anyone that's going to get hot, they're not going to keep for very long. Impact is going to lose their stars pretty quickly, because once a contract is up, you and I have talked about this for months, but Jordan Grace is going to be the hottest female talent that's going to be signed once her Impact contract is up. AEW and WWE are going to come knocking.
Yes.
And, I wouldn't be surprised if Deonna Purrazzo is going to join that. I know NXT kind of dropped the ball with them, but once that contract's up, AEW is not going to be too shy unless there's any conflict there that we're not aware of.
Right.
Kylie Ray, I know she was in AEW for about a week.
Yeah, that appears to have been she just wasn't ready for that spotlight. She might just not. I don't know. I can't speak for her, obviously, and I wouldn't want to. She just might be somebody who's more comfortable in this setting there.
Absolutely.
Than she was on a major, because she didn't go to WWE after that.
No, well, we don't know if there was interest there, but you're absolutely correct.
Right.
Kylie Ray moved into Impact, and she's been very good since she went there.
She's great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that match too.
Absolutely. Yeah, she's got the women's title match again, or I should say knockouts title match against Deonna. Some other female talent that I think will be hot commodities once their contracts are up. Taya Valkyrie is going to be a big one. She has the Lucha tie to AEW, and then she also has the John Morrison tie-in for WWE, so we'll see where that ends up going.
They might want to start pushing him a little bit more seriously.
We'll see. It's possible that they are. I don't know where this Money in the Bank contract switcheroo is going to happen, but if I were booking it, he'd end up with the contract out of everyone involved.
Well, unfortunately, you and I are not employed there, so
that's why I just sit and watch and hope for the best. When it comes to back to Bound for Glory, we've got Ace Austin, who's going to be another hot talent once his contract is up.
Great.
So we can list off all these great talents, and you and I will sing the praises of Willie Mack until he gets signed. I know WWE will probably pass on him for physical reasons, but no matter what, he is one of the best talents out there outside of the AEW.
I love that man. I love that man.
Anything he does turns to gold. So all these people, great talents, give Bound for Glory a shot. Tune in to Impact. If you can find a way to watch it after it airs on Tuesday evening, give it a shot. I definitely think Bound for Glory is going to be the show of the weekend.
I agree. Well, part of that is also because Hell in a Cell has 4 matches last I checked. So we've got Roman and Jey Uso.
Correct.
Which is the only thing I would say is worth checking out at the moment. It's the only thing I'm really interested in.
Well, you mentioned being interested in the Bayley Sasha Banks stuff.
That's true, but they've just, they've gotten that hot now, but at the same time, we didn't talk about it before. They've also messed that up so many times. Okay. They did that match a few weeks ago. I don't even know why that match was booked on SmackDown. This should have been the first match at the Cell. They should have been kept separate until then, but they booked that match. They only give them 2 minutes. They do that DQ. They have all the past history of them getting this thing wrong. It's just, you have to be a little hesitant there. So I can't fully wrap my arms around that one yet either, even though I do think they've done, save for that incident a couple weeks ago with the DQ, I think they've done a much better job previously. But again,
you're still right, though. It's only 4 matches booked, and we already talked about how Drew and Orton has been beaten to death, so no one's really going to be – I don't feel anyone's going to be that invested in that match. And then we have Jeff Hardy against Elias, which is interesting, but it's definitely a mid-card thrown in at the last minute, not a reason someone's going to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to subscribe to the network this week to watch that Hell in the Cell show. It's not going to happen.
Can't wait. Maybe it'll become like a rock concert versus a Christian rock concert or something. Isn't that what Elias is doing now? He's a Christian rocker?
I thought it was more of a blues rock style. I didn't hear any Christian stuff.
Apparently he was singing Amen.
Well, Amen, but I don't think it was meant as a religious thing. At least I didn't get that.
Maybe he was just quoting Bobby Briggs in Twin Peaks then.
That's why he's the cult icon, ladies and gentlemen. So other shows coming up, obviously with 411 Mania really promoting all these podcasts. We have the Dissecting Dynamite going on tomorrow. Give us a quick preview. What is going on with AEW Dynamite tomorrow?
Well, this is a big show, obviously. So we have 6 matches. Britt Baker is in singles competition, probably a squash match. And that is easily the biggest thing on the show.
No.
Except when you get into the other stuff. We have a 4-way tag match. The Young Bucks, John Silver and Alex Reynolds of the Dark Order, Private Party, and the Butcher and the Blade winner faces FTR at Full Gear.
Quick prediction. Who do you think's winning that one?
I think it will be Reynolds and Silver. I can't finish that with straight face. It's the Bucks. Okay. And then we've got the tournament, the singles tournament, where the finals will take place at Full Gear. All 4 first-round matches will be on the show. So you got Kenny Omega versus Joey Janela, Pentagon versus Phoenix in the match that I am most excited for.
Hangman, the hat, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep, the hat. They both work here too. Hangman Page versus Colt Cabana. And Wardlow versus Jungle Boy, which I think most people would say is the most intriguing, given that they've both shown a lot of promise and they're both considered future stars going forward.
Mm-hmm. And then they have a segment booked with
yes,
and
the steak dinner.
That's right.
It'll be the most entertaining steak dinner in wrestling history because, let's be real, there have been no others that have been recorded for a show.
The only thing I could think of is when Brody Lee was eating his steak dinner to mock what apparently Vince likes to do with his steak.
I did enjoy that. That might end up being the best still.
So very solid AEW Dynamite tomorrow, and we're building up to Full Gear. I'm looking forward to that pay-per-view. I am going to watch NXT tomorrow night because that's more my style, even though you're right, it is hit or miss. And the one thing that I'm always going to praise AEW for is they book for the future and promote the next show way better than anything WWE could ever dream of. So we already know this whole list, pretty much maybe 1 or 2 matches might be added to the card. Whereas the other case is NXT announces 1 or 2 matches, and then we find out what else happens when we tune in. So the only thing booked is they have the tag title match, Breezango against Undisputed Era, but it's now the combo of Fish and Strong. I don't know if that'll make much of a difference, but
Roddy, though, I love Roddy.
Roddy's always going to be amazing, and I like Fish and O'Reilly as technical style wrestlers, but Fish is showing his age, we'll say. And then they have the triple threat. We already mentioned some controversy with Velveteen Dream. He's going to be taking on Kushida, who he's been feuding with recently, and Tommaso Ciampa is going to be involved as well. I'm sure that'll be a solid match, but
the best part of that match will be when everyone who's watching the show tweets out "Fire Velveteen Dream" while still watching the show.
I'm always going to be of let's wait for the proof to come out before I start getting involved in these allegations. But the ones against Velveteen Dream are very, very hard to ignore. And it makes for an uncomfortable watch whenever he comes on the screen. It's not to the point where I can't watch. It's not like Chris Benoit matches where I'd rather just skip it. But at the same time, I'm wondering, I hope this ends pretty quick because I don't want to sit here uncomfortable for this long.
My biggest problem, as we've talked about before, has always been these people, they want him fired, and then they keep watching his segments, and they tweet this thing out, and it's like, Vince doesn't care about Twitter hashtags. He cares about money. He cares about viewership. If you want this guy gone, turn off the TV when he's on.
100%. I love WWE, and I'm not turning it off for these reasons, but to the fans that are complaining and wondering why they're still pushing these people, but you're still tuning in every week, you're the problem. If you really are that dead set against this sort of booking, whether it's of the guys that you don't want to be on TV or the generic WWE complaints, you really have to vote with your wallet or with your remote control and just move on with your life. Yeah,
it's one thing if you enjoy the show and you have no problem with this at all, then fine. Yeah, keep doing what you're doing. But if you really feel that this guy is, a pervert and such and deserves to be off the air, and I mean, personally, I feel that way. I would have fired him if I was Vince. If you feel that way or you just feel you don't like the show or anything like that, the best solution isn't to keep watching, it's to turn it off. Vince craves attention. It doesn't matter what monetary, viewership, even just signing up to be on that Thunderdome thing. He craves that. He wants that. If you're doing that, he's going to think, well, it's working and such. The best way to stick it to him is to leave him alone, turn it off. And
I've said it since the day one, since you decided to turn off WWE, even though we don't watch the same wrestling, we'll kind of argue about it. I have the utmost respect for you because you actually voted with your wallet and you don't get on Twitter and complain about these things that WWE does. You just decided, I'm done with it. I'm going to concentrate all my energy on Lucha, which we're going to get to in a second, and then AEW. And it's about, and I don't want to sound like New Day, but it's about let's use that energy positive, and I'm going to follow this instead and ignore what I don't care for.
Of course, the irony now is I'm doing the show where it's now all going to come out.
Fair enough. But we at least get to cover the passions that you have, such as AEW and Lucha. So you're wearing the AAA hat. You watch CMLL. You told me before we went on the air today that it wasn't as terrible as you've said it's been previously, but there's been some other Lucha-related news. You are the expert on the subject. Tell us about, I'm going to mispronounce his name, so just take over from here.
Principe Aereo. Yes. Obviously, I'm sure everybody's heard by now. Unfortunately, there was a tragic death this past weekend. Principe Aereo passed away. He was wrestling a show for Mexa Wrestling in Mexico. It's an indie promotion.
Okay.
I've unfortunately seen the video, and I will never see that video again. I've seen too many of these videos over the past few years. and it's a normal match. He takes 2 slaps to the chest.
Right.
His opponent hits the ropes, and he collapses. And fortunately, everybody, this wasn't like a Silver King incident. You remember with that one where it took them forever to figure out what was wrong there. Everybody knew something was up immediately. They got him on a stretcher immediately, but unfortunately it was too late. Apparently, a lot of people thought it was a heart attack caused by the slaps, but as it turns out, it was a brain aneurysm.
Oh.
Yeah, so, and I mean, some of that can be caused by head trauma. From what I'm told, he didn't suffer a head injury in that match. It doesn't appear he took any bumps on his head. Obviously, brain aneurysms can be freaky things. So it could just be something as simple as that. I don't know, but it's obviously tragic. He was 23 years old. He had wrestled a spot show for AAA, if I recall.
Okay.
It wasn't on TV, but I believe he did wrestle a spot show for them earlier this year. I know he was trained, I believe, in CMLL. Neither promotion has released a statement. I'm not sure why. I think that would be nice of them to do. I mean, Christopher Daniels of AEW has acknowledged what happened to this poor kid. It's awful. And now on top of that, now, there's going to be so much conversation about this because people only talk about Lucha Libre when something bad happens these days.
Well, not you and I, but you're absolutely right for the generic.
I'm sure you recall there was that story about the guy who threw the brick not too long ago. That dominated the news. Obviously, one of the biggest moments in my lifetime as a Lucha fan was Perro Aguayo Jr. Dying in the ring. That was a monumental moment for me that changed. I think that, helped me fall in love with Lucha even more in the aftermath because he was such a talented guy and I got to see so little of him. Well respected. His father was a legend. Right. They both worked in WWE. You'll recall that. We talked about that at the time. And I got into Lucha Libre full time through Lucha Underground around that time. And I didn't get to see as much of him as I would have liked. And it had such a huge effect on me that I couldn't waste another moment waiting to dive into this thing. And
you've been pretty passionate. And I know one thing that we do agree on is we both love Lucha Underground.
Yes.
Different aspects about it. I was more the storytelling. You appreciate that too, but you enjoy the Lucha wrestling style a lot more than I do.
Well, when it comes to you and I, see, we may have different tastes when it comes to style, but in booking philosophy, we're very much on the same page.
True.
Which is why we both agree that AEW does a very good job on that front, as opposed to some of these other promotions out there and such. It's just the style we disagree on, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about Aereo. Sorry, pronounce it again for me.
Principe Aereo.
Aereo. I was going to say
Aereo, yeah.
I was thinking
AEREO.
AERAO. So definitely a tragic story. We are going to cover some Lucha every week, though. The one thing you talk about how everyone covers the negatives, the positives is AAA has been doing some really outstanding work. Have they booked any more of these drive-in shows, as far as you know?
They're booked through November 1st, I think. I don't know if they're going to be doing – I think they're going to be doing more. I think they're going to start moving it around is what's going to happen. But none of them have aired yet, other than the first one from that Sunday, which was a tremendous show. I loved that show.
Yeah.
But
have they been doing anything else on Facebook or whatever?
No, I think they're going to start posting these episodes on YouTube as time goes on. And CMLL is just doing shows in Arena, Mexico in front of nobody. And, they've had a COVID outbreak and such like WWE had, like AEW apparently had, although we don't know the full effects of that yet. And yeah, that's obviously IWRG, which is the third biggest promotion, is doing shows in their home base. It's slowly kind of coming back, but obviously we're not going to be all the way back anywhere until there's a vaccine or there's a treatment or something for COVID. So
I think along those lines, I'm very interested in seeing how WWE is going to handle, because eventually they're going to be the brand that'll bring in a lot more fans. I think of the American mainstream, they'll have the most, and they'll be the most adventurous. I think AEW is doing the smart thing, going very slow.
That's going to be tricky because this broke before the show. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah.
They are being investigated by Orlando County. Yeah.
Orange County or whatever it is.
Orange County or yes.
And Jacksonville's just outside of the county limit, so they're not in that hot zone. But yeah, all three locations where WWE has been taping, the PC, Full Sail, and of course Amway, where they've been recording the Thunderdome. They're all going to be investigated for COVID outbreaks and seeing what they can do to fix that. I don't think it'll end up having that much of
no. I would agree. Yeah.
I think in the end, though, what we might end up seeing that I get curious about is how they're going to incorporate the Thunderdome with a live audience. I've noticed that they've extended the screens further into where the stands would be in a normal arena. So I'm wondering if they're planning on bringing fans around like the inner bottom bowl and then still having the screens going up in the stands. We're going to see how it goes. I'm curious, but at the same time, I'd much rather them work on Raw than anything else.
Yeah, I think they need to work on the quality more than that. I mean, the Thunderdome thing meant something the first couple of weeks. Now it's just another part of the show. It doesn't really help them one way or the other. The only thing that's going to help them is improving the show. But the thing is, that's been the case for years, and they still don't realize that.
It's either that they are not concerned with it, which is my guess at this point, and they just want to keep the ball going, the machine running, or they have something in their back pocket that they're hoping to pull out at some point, sort of like the Roman Reigns heel turn. I don't know if that's going to fix everything. Obviously, we don't think so, but it definitely has been a highlight on SmackDown since Roman Reigns has come back.
Or they're in denial.
Well, that's Vince McMahon. That's the rumors about Vince McMahon since the start, and Brother Love, Bruce, in charge of everything.
Oh, God.
Yeah. When it comes to what we discuss, and I know we complain about the booking, in the end, I'm always just going to care about, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to watch the show, and am I going to enjoy it? I'm not going to worry about how it should be or here's how they should do it instead. I just want to sit and enjoy. And when it comes to that, Raw has not worked out. SmackDown and NXT has, but definitely so has Impact. AEW is more hit and miss for my taste. I don't think any of it is bad. It's just I don't have the taste for what they're producing, but it's still very solidly performed. And I'm going to love doing this show with you, Eric, because we're going to have such passion for the wrestling that we watch, different shows and different passions, different interests. But in the end, we're always going to have some hot takes about it all, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, here's the hottest take of all. Like, nothing is ever truly one way or the other. There's perception, obviously. There's opinions leaning one way more than the other, perhaps. But, one man's trash is another man's treasure, right?
Absolutely.
It's all in the eye of the beholder. I don't belittle anybody. If you enjoy Raw, that's your prerogative. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. Just like I don't expect you to lose sleep over, me enjoying AEW or something like that. No. You like what you like,
and enjoy it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. The only thing, and this will be a recurring theme because we talk about it all the time, if you're not enjoying it, then the best thing for you to do is to find something else that you do enjoy and take your money away from that person so they learn the lesson. Because they're not going to learn if you just keep watching every week.
100%. And it just creates this negativity. And unfortunately, it's, especially online with these circles, it's going to breed a lot of that negativity. It's only going to grow. So if it's not your thing,
tribal warfare. And there's so much wrestling out there. If you're frustrated with WWE and you're already watching AEW, but you still have a taste for more, give Impact a shot. Or if you want to go back, find some Bloodsport, because that is the golden era for me. I love anything more realistic and blood. That was a good show.
Very good show. Well, thank you very much for joining us again, Eric. Thank you, everybody, for paying attention. 411 Mania. We have some more shows coming to this, podcast network. I don't know if that's going to be the official term, but we have Dissecting Dynamite coming on tomorrow with Alex Perez, and AEW sounds to have a pretty solid show.
Yep.
We'll be back here next week. We'll recap some more, hopefully more impressive Raw.
A better Raw. Hopefully a better Raw and
If
a good
not,
SmackDown.
We're definitely going to cover some Bound for Glory over the next week. We're going to cover some Hell in a Cell, good or bad. We are going to bring you a lot of new content. We are the decline of wrestling civilization, the horrors of wrestling, but most importantly, we are WrestleTakesMania. Joe Martel.
Woo!
Say your name.
Eric Mutter. Eric Mutter. Bah.
We're not used to pronouncing our own names.
No.
We will see you again next week. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.